We're actually launching also TMS and CAT functionality, so everything in one platform, both the CMS, the TMS, and the CAT in the same platforms.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Slator Pod. Today we welcome Anna Albinsson. So Anna is the CEO of content management and localization platform Gridly. Hi Anna, and thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Where in the world are you recording this from today?
Actually, we are recording from the center of Stockholm in Sweden. Gridly's headquarters is in Sweden, but in south of Sweden. But today I'm in Stockholm.
So south of Sweden, any particular city or?
Gridly is founded of two guys in Helsingborg, is a city called in south of Stockholm. So that's where we also have the headquarters, but we have people around the world working for Gridly. But the headquarters is based in Helsingborg, south of Sweden.
Helsingborg, south of Sweden. Yeah, I was just talking to you before the podcast that I think in November I was in Malmö for a conference, NTIF, that a lot of people in this industry would know, and it's always great to be back. So, probably I'm going to go back this year again.
Yeah, then you can come and welcome us in Helsingborg. I will
do. It's also fast, right? You land in Copenhagen, you cross over into Malmö, and then it's probably another 30 minutes to Helsingborg, maybe even less. Yeah, I think the train from the airport might even take you to Helsingborg.
It does.
So Anna, your professional background is in marketing and comms, and tell us a bit more about your route to becoming CEO of Gridly, which is in content management and localization.
Well, I've had a lot of years within the SaaS industry in general. I actually started to work within SaaS companies before I even knew what that really was. I've been working a lot within data and analytics mainly, and I've been always into different kind of roles from the go-to-market perspective. So I've been working with sales and marketing and business development. And I would say today marketing and sales might be almost the same for SaaS companies, different methods used to attract new customers and to engage with existing customers. But I would say that I've been lucky to be able to work with companies like in the forefront, mainly within data analytics, because that also has brought me into relevant topics connected to Gridly, like working with this amazing technical platform, but also coming early stage into AI.
Did you have any exposure to translation, localization, multilingual content before, or not much?
Not at all, actually. I've had the struggle myself. I've been in the content chaos. I have seen the challenges that you face when you are scaling a SaaS company or a mobile app company into new markets. So I feel the pain, but the industry is new to me.
And you joined, about a year ago, or?
Yeah, I joined like 3 months ago only. So
3 months ago.
December I joined.
All right.
But also the recruitment process for becoming the CEO, it takes a while. So it's been, almost around for a year. So.
All right. Well, a belated welcome to the world of, localization, multilingual content. You will never be able to leave anymore. So
no.
You're stuck now.
Probably
That's
not.
It. So tell us more about Gridly. You mentioned SaaS, software as a service. So is Gridly fully SaaS, like no services at all? And just tell us a bit about Gridly in a nutshell, clients, areas, kind of, is it a global, is it maybe more focused on Europe? And what's the origin of the name Gridly? Maybe we start with that.
At Gridly, we love Excel. We think that gives you a really good overview. So the name Gridly actually comes from, the design of a grid or a sheet in Excel or Google Sheet. So that's the way Gridly is organized, and that's the way, the UI looks like you are in a Google Sheet or, in some kind of grid. And the company is built of game developers for game developers, and more than 80% of our customers, they are within the gaming industry. We have the biggest gaming companies in the world as our clients, customers like Warner Brothers, Scopely, Pokemon, Rovio, Tencent. So the founders, they have worked within the gaming industry for many years, and that's why they also has developed this solution for other gaming companies. So that's where we have our core. And it all started with like building a CMS for gaming companies, because they really have the struggle, as many other companies, with scaling their content into many different markets. They need to deliver an amazing experience for the gamers to be relevant in the gaming industry. So what the founders have been able to do with Gridly is to support that process for gaming companies today. So we are really big within that industry, and we have customers all around the globe. But I would say that most of them, they are based in US or Europe. We're also starting to grow in the Asian markets as well.
So how old is the company? When was it founded originally?
So the company was founded about 2 years ago, but it comes from another company that is named Localized Direct. That is more like the LSP solution. So these guys and a lot of people on the company has been working within the industry for a longer period of time, but then built the platform, creating a new company, and now Gridly is fully a SaaS company today.
But Sweden isn't like a natural home for gaming, right?
It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. We have a few really successful gaming studios, but it might not be the largest market in the world. But these guys that have built this company has worked for, the global big gaming companies before. And then they founded their own company trying to solve this content chaos thing and, the localization process for gaming companies. So that's where it comes from, and that's where Gridly has its origin.
Maybe walk us through like a key customer, and no need to name names, right? But like what problems does Gridly solve? What are kind of the specialty areas? Because in the localization management system, translation management system space, I mean, there's many solutions. There's many edge cases. There's many specific features that companies would excel at. So what's kind of your USP there? Give us the rundown there.
Yeah. So we have customers from smaller mobile games into the big AAA games and anything in between. And their struggle is, of course, to scale into new markets. They invest heavily in producing the game, and then, they really need to get their money back, and then they want to become global. They need to provide for the gamers. They need to provide an amazing experience for the audience. They have extremely high standards and advanced content pipelines for their content. And they need to update, their content frequently. So it's a pretty complex localization content ops process, I would say, for the gaming industry. And what we are doing within Gridly is, of course, to host the content within our CMS. Tomorrow, we're actually launching also TMS and CAT functionality, so everything in one platform, both the CMS, the TMS, and the CAT in the same platform. So that is pretty big for us. We just had an internal launch with the whole company celebrating this success. But within Gridly, then you can really, you have all the content from producing the content. You handle the full content process, the localization process. You work with AI and machine translation, but also, of course, all the people that needs to collaborate within Gridly. For the big gaming companies, it could be 500 users or something, working within Gridly at the same time on different tasks and topics. All from the developers to the translators to the approval process. So all the collaboration is also handled within Gridly. So we are moving from a CMS into a full content ops solution by the launch we actually have tomorrow. So it's pretty big for us.
Yeah, it seems pretty big. Do you have a name for that release, or is it?
No, it's just it's the release. We have So tomorrow we will invite everyone that are on the Gridly channels to a virtual launch that everyone can join and to see the product features. So it's on the Gridly platform. We are adding 2 more modules, not only the CMS, and then you can have the full solution within the Gridly platform.
Got it. So we are really fast at producing podcasts, but we're not going to be able to produce it today and release it so that tomorrow will still be tomorrow. So by the time people watch this or listen to this, it might be a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
But
it will definitely be there.
It will definitely be there. So go and check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So have you, you're talking about AAA. So are these kind of your ideal clients, or would you also say, well, we don't care, we also like to have 100 indie developers use Gridly? Or do you kind of want to move it more towards the AAA?
Yeah, we have, we can handle them all. For some reason, we have ended up with a lot of AAA games, and I think because Gridley is a pretty advanced solution, it can handle almost anything. It's built of game developers for game developers, so I think that's why we attract a lot of AAA games. But we are also looking into, customers within other industries as well, not only within the gaming industry. And the main reason for that is that we have had a lot of inbounds coming from other kind of industries as well. That's how it all started, looking into different kind of customers as well. And now we have almost 20% of our customers outside of games as well.
So outside would be what, like fintech, edtech, this type of
Yeah.
stuff?
Fintech and edtech is two really good examples. They really have the need, and Gridley can really solve the need. I would say that Gridley can solve almost anything, and that might sometimes be too much for a customer that doesn't need everything. So for us, it's more about to make some customization into different industries to be able to also take care of customers outside of gaming. And I think also a big difference for us is that within gaming, the people that we are working with, they are so professional in localization. They can take the platform and start working on it directly. But when we move outside of, the professional localization managers area, then sometimes we need to really, work with the customers to also support them a bit more to be on, to have onboarding and maybe need other kind of services and support around the platform, and we do that in collaboration with other LSPs. But within gaming, I would say it's pretty easy for the customers to be onboarded. They like the platform and they like that it is advanced and that you can do almost anything for it. For other industries, we need to customize a little bit more.
But the intention is eventually, after the handholding and the onboarding is complete, like to let them go and it's fully kind of self-managed, or?
Yeah, that's the vision for us. So when we support customers with support of partnerships with other LSPs, they are on the platform. They support them through the onboarding, the integrations, and all those kind of things. And of course, we would like to hand over the platform to the client at some extent when they feel that they are ready. So that is probably where it will end up. But it's I mean, it's like for every one of us who needs hundreds of tools. So just providing a tool to someone that is not interested or can't handle a tool, it doesn't bring any value. I think that for SaaS companies today, we want them to be only the platform solution and nothing else. But I think that we also need to consider, if we want to grow as a company, to also support customers that might not be that mature in their localization or content ops processes yet.
That's a good kind of jumping off point. Now, you haven't been with the company for years, right? But like in the past couple of months, have you seen some initial leads that are still very low on the maturity curve? Like you mentioned Excel, but like, have you seen actual companies like still running localization off of a spreadsheet and now coming to you and saying, hey, I DIY'd this forever. Can I onboard? Can I use your system, or not yet?
Yeah, I have. I've actually had a lot of dialogues with our existing customers, but also potential new customers outside of the gaming industry. So I put a lot of effort in there for the last 3 months. I have had probably 30, 40 meetings with global companies that are not within gaming and that might not be that mature in their localization processes. And I would say that, my main conclusion from that is that each and every one of the people that I have interviewed or have conversations with, they feel the content pain. If you are a global company with a global digital product, you are struggling with content in general. You feel, that it's some kind of chaos and how to handle it. In general, I would say that they are today in Excel or in Google Sheets with their processes. And I would say that it's not a bad way to start, right? If you are in 1, 2, 3 markets, you might not have that, heavy content. You don't have that much content. I think that Excel or Google Sheet might be enough for 1 or 2 or 3 markets, maybe. That's a good way to start. But when the Excel sheet is getting out of control, that is when you need to start working in another way, right? So I think that is a really good, sometimes I ask these people questions like, where, do you know where to find the latest version? Do you know if this is translated from AI or a country manager? Do you know who is responsible? And the answer is almost always no, and that is a problem for them. But I think that, Excel or Google Sheet is better than nothing. But when you are growing and moving into more markets and you increase your volume of content, you definitely need a platform if you're going to work in an efficient way and feel that you have control over the content as well. So I've seen a lot of different ways of working lately, but as I just started, my main conclusion is that everyone in a global company with a digital product, they need some kind of localization platform or services.
Let's transition to AI and start with a data point that you posted about a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn. I think it was a chart about people being excited and not excited about AI. And surprisingly, the Swedes were among the least excited and at the same time the most nervous about products and services that use AI. Now, of course, your market is global, but what's up with the Swedes, Anna?
Yeah, what's up with
Why?
the Swedes?
What's up with the Swedes?
No, but I think that in Sweden in general, we have a lot of successful companies within industries and tech companies like Klarna and Spotify, coming from Sweden and based in Sweden. These companies, of course, they are developing and working a lot with AI, and they are in the forefront. But I've also recently met actually with the Swedish AI Commission, the government people working on putting, Sweden, in the forefront of AI. And I know that there are a lot of things going on there. So from a political standpoint and, from a company standpoint, tech company standpoint, I think that Sweden is, it's okay. And we are, on par with many other markets. But I think that, in Sweden, and it might also hold true for a lot of other countries, we also need to realize that AI is not for everyone within society. I think it can also be, part of, I think it's important to talk about inclusion when it comes to AI as well. Maybe you don't understand, and you don't have the knowledge, or you don't feel the need of using AI. But I think it's also a lot about trust. And I think the same holds for B2B, right? If you work with, AI generated content, you need to trust it. You need to be able to track it. You need to be able to have one source of truth. You need to build in that trust. And I think the same holds true for, someone that is not working with AI in their daily life. They might not feel the trust. So I think that Sweden is, it's okay, and maybe also in the forefront when it comes to the company and the politics that we're putting in now. But we also need to make sure that, we have inclusion from everyone, living in our country as well.
And also on the language side, I remember from that NTIF conference, I'm blanking on the name, but there was a panel with 2 experts from the government as well. And I think their job was to really make sure that it works in Swedish as well, right?
Yeah.
And not just, of course, in English.
No, and I think also to add on that topic, we also have a few discussions now in Sweden, and this also holds true for other markets. But it's also, when you live in a multicultural society, you also have a big need for some kind of domestic localization, right? You need to be able, as a government, to provide, important information in different languages, maybe different cultures within a specific country as well. So it's also, within the specific country.
Yeah, as we're going multicultural, the US is saying we have one national language, which is English. So which is probably going to be, we're going to be covering this in a follow-up podcast, hopefully this week still. Let's see.
Interesting topic.
Yeah, big one. So in terms of AI, lots of AI development, foundation models, 4, 5, 6 big platforms, tons of open source. And now you said you launched also the CAT functionality. So how do you decide what to integrate? How much do you even work on the AI, or just kind of integrate it like by an API or some other module? How do you decide how and what to integrate there?
First of all, when it comes to decisions on integration, we listen to our customers, so the needs from our customers is really important for us to be able to, support them in the way that they would like to work. And we would like to be a flexible solution for them. When it comes to AI, we work with most established players like OpenAI, DeepL, Amazon, Google, and those kind of companies, of course, and we integrate. But The important thing for us is to give our customers the flexibility they need. And that also holds true for the CMS and CAT functionality that we are building within our own platform. And now we have integrations with MemoQ, we have integrations with Phrase. We will continue to have those integrations for the customers that would like to work in that way and only use the CMS functionality within Gridly. So that will still be there. But what we have heard from our customers, and that's the way we run our product development, is listening to our customers and having conversations with our customers, is that they would like to have it in one single platform to make it easier, to make it more efficient, to lower the costs, and to be able to store and work with the content in one place. But it's a complex process. So if you're still on MemoQ and Phrase and you would like to work with Gridly, that will work totally fine going forward. It's up to you. We have the flexibility.
So now in this AI world where everybody is integrating AI at a very kind of deep level, everybody meaning like, big companies, big content flows, do you feel it may be a threat that companies are kind of integrating this at a very foundational level, or do you feel there's always going to be a need for a separate system on top to help with the multilingual aspect of it? Like, how do you see that kind of the big LLMs coming in at the very kind of foundation of it, and then on top of that you have specific SaaS layers for specific problems like localization?
So, of course, the LLMs, they come with a huge value. It's a huge value if you work on a localization content ops platform or not. They can give you an extremely high value. But I think that, for us, it's not a threat. For Gridly, that this is like 100% an opportunity, and we talk about it a lot. I think that the key word here is accountability. You need to use the strength and the power of LLMs, but you also need to be able to handle workflow management, content governance, version control, all of those kind of things. And today, at least, LLMs, they can't really orchestrate, the full localization process. So you will still need that kind of functionality, I think, and I think it's extremely important. But for us to integrate the LLMs in our platform, of course, gives us, new capabilities that we can offer to our customers, and they can also work in a more efficient and streamlined way. So for me, it's a huge opportunity, and I think the LLMs to be work completely on their own for complex content processes, I don't think that will happen, in the nearest time at least. So I'm just amazed. I almost get goosebumps when I see how AI can develop our platform and what it can give to our customers in combination with the functionality that we have within Gridly today. So it's a really good combination for us.
It's also a very noisy environment, kind of in the language AI marketplace. You go on X, there's always like a mind blown emoji every day about something new coming out. Even in the kind of more narrower translation AI space, localization, it's very, very, very competitive. So let's talk about sales and marketing. You said it, in SaaS, it's very hard to differentiate the two, but like, how do you run sales? How do you run marketing? What do you do? What do you think works? What doesn't work?
So the difference with Gridly and the other SaaS companies that I have worked with before is that, moving into those previous companies, I had to change the business model from something into SaaS. That means that it was a heavy overload on the sales side of the go-to-market process, and you need to really work on balance that out. Moving into Gridly, that is completely the opposite. Gridly is founded, as a SaaS company, AI-first company. It makes the game plan completely different. So we are, almost 100% inbound leads today within Gridly. That is the majority of the business that we do and where we spend our money. We have a really skilled marketing team that is driving this, driving the brand, driving the lead generation as well. And we have a sales organization as well, but they often come into play when we have had, when we have the inbound leads, they start working on those. So I would say it's almost like 100% inbound. And I think for us it works pretty well, but it also for us then the brand becomes extremely important. So
Yeah.
within gaming we have this brand, you know, and everyone knows about Gridley. But outside of gaming we have some work to do for other companies to also found us in this to find us in this digital landscape.
What channels do you think work best, like in 2025? I mean, is like full on Google SEO, is that still huge? Do you feel there's maybe a bit of a dent by AI and people just asking, you know, ChatGPT directly? Do you think events are good? Do you go to like the big gaming conferences or maybe other conferences? Which channel do you feel are good?
No, I think that what you need, you know, what I should, you know, working with digital companies, working with AI, working with data analytics and marketing for many, many years, I should answer, you know, it's all about the digital world, but it's not. Of course, you know, the SEO and, you know, how you work with Google and other engines is extremely important, of course, to drive traffic and to be able to create awareness around your company, of course. But I think that the combination, we are still like people, even though we're a platform company, it's people doing business with people. For that, you need to build relationships. And to be able to build relationships, you need to also meet with real people. So I love to have like, you know, customer meetings when they are needed. You know, we will also have a heavy event agenda for this year. We will participate in many of the big events because I think that you need to connect to a company as well. It's not only a platform and a website, and you know, you also want to know the people working there and you want to feel trust for those people working there. So I'm much for, you know, digital first, but human relationships in combination with that I think is super strong, and that is how we try to apply our go-to-market model at Gridley.
And just a good old sales, just to belabor that point a little bit, like good old kind of outreach sales. Do you feel like in something as complex as B2B SaaS and the kind of the layer, the complex solution that you provide, do you think that has value still, or not really? Like you do product-led growth plus great online plus you go to events, that'll cover it?
Yeah, I think, but you might have to do some outreaches. But I mean, when I do outreaches on my own, I do it within my network or people that has seen my personal brand on LinkedIn that are connected, or I have seen something specific on LinkedIn and I really personalize that kind of outreach. You know, I'm also working myself a lot with sales, but I think like pushing and pushing and pushing outbound. I think that that is still working for a few companies. For us, it's not working very good. And we do some outbound emailing, but we try to stay really sharp, really try to find the target audience, really be sharp on that kind of email marketing. But, you know, I can see on the results, you know, it's a huge, we don't have that impact within that channel anymore. If we are very precise, if we do really good prospecting, it might work, still work.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to be really laser focused. Otherwise, you could send literally a million emails and
And who
not
wants
much,
more emails
not
nowadays?
much
You know?
comes back.
You
You're
want more
right.
emails?
Nobody wants more emails. No. All right, let's talk a bit about like maybe the roadmap for 2025 beyond like what's in plan. You just said you had a big release coming up. By the time this comes out, it's you know, it's a couple of days ago. So yeah, maybe just remind people of the launch again, but then also other things that you have planned for 2025.
So the launch that we are doing now is the biggest launch in Gridley's history. So, you know, it's for us, it's huge. What it will do when we add CAT and TMS functionality to our CMS solution in one platform is, of course, that, you know, we can attract customers that needs all of those functionalities, of course, but we can also be more attractive when it comes to the area of AI. So for the last years, we have invested a lot in, you know, the CAT and TMS. The dev team has been working almost only on this to be able for us to make this launch. You know, when the release is coming up, you have a few weeks where you need to, you know, work on a few things when it's launched, the feedback from the customers and so on. But then for the rest of 2025, our main focus will be in the AI field. We see that our customers, they are asking for us. They want to have better AI and machine translation. They want better solutions when it comes to context, when it comes to consistency, for AI to understand the context it is translating within, and the consistency, the area that it works in with, glossary and translation memory and so on. So our vision now for Gridley is to be a full-fledged platform within content operations, and we really want to create a world where, content flows seamlessly, and when it's really, AI powered as much as it can be. So we will invest and focus on the AI area for the rest of 2025.
All right. Well, good luck with that. Very excited about that launch. And thanks so much for joining today, Anna.
Thank you for having me.